Don't be drawn into conflicts you didn't create. Welcome to the B-side, where we believe the record is not over yet. So the other day, someone sent me a text message. There was a short but powerful phrase in that message. And it simply said, "I will not be drawn into conflicts that I did not create." I read it, then I read it again. And instead of rushing to respond to the text, I sat with it. Because sometimes the shortest statements require the longest reflection. And as I thought about those words, I realized how many times throughout my life I had allowed myself to be drawn into conflicts that had absolutely nothing to do with me. Maybe you've done it too. Someone is upset with someone else. Before long, they're calling you. Not because you caused the problem, not because you can solve the problem, but because they needed someone to validate their side, or choose a side, or carry the emotional weight that they no longer want to carry. And before you know it, you're upset. Your peace is disturbed, or as my granddaughter calls it, you're disrupted. In case you didn't know, that's a combination of being interrupted and disturbed. Your blood pressure is elevated. Your day has been totally hijacked over a conflict that you didn't even create. Sometimes people aren't even kind when they recruit you. Have you ever noticed that they call already frustrated, already angry, emotional, already convinced they're right? And sometimes they're abrupt, impatient, and even rude. And they speak as though you're supposed to immediately stop whatever you're doing because they've declared an emergency. Not because you've done anything to them, not because their pain has made them forget their manners. Now hear me clearly. Someone else's crisis does not give them permission to mistreat you. And it certainly does not require you to surrender your peace in order to prove your love. You can be compassionate without being consumed. You can be available without being emotionally captive. You can listen without absorbing every ounce of another person's anxiety, because that isn't selfish. That's wisdom. Now, don't misunderstand me. There are times when people genuinely need our wisdom. There are moments when someone simply needs a listening ear, a prayer, a hug, a safe place to land. There is absolutely nothing wrong with extending grace. In fact, as women of faith, grace is one of our greatest gifts. But there is a difference between offering support and becoming emotionally enlisted in someone else's war. One nourishes, the other drains. B-side queens, at this stage of our lives, our peace is just simply too valuable to give away so carelessly. I've learned something over the years. Not every problem requires my opinion. The disagreements don't require my participation. Every misunderstanding should not require my investigation. Sometimes the wisest thing that one can say is, "I hope the two of you are able to work that out." And then leave it right there. Because when we involve ourselves in every conflict, we slowly lose the ability to hear our own thoughts. We carry burdens that God never assigned to us. We replay conversations that don't involve us. We lose sleep over situations we didn't even create. We become emotionally exhausted trying to referee games that we were never meant to officiate. I've also learned that some people, they really don't want advice. They want agreement. They don't want peace. They want partners. They do not want resolution. They just want reinforcement. And there is a difference. Be careful that your compassion isn't mistaken for consent. Sometimes the healthiest thing that you can say is, "I love you, but I don't know enough to take a side." And that doesn't make you uncaring. It makes you wise. Because once you become part of the conflict, Your name now enters conversations that never should have included you. Now you're carrying stress that doesn't even belong to you. Praying over situations that were never assigned to you, feeling responsible for outcomes that you can't control. That is a heavy price to pay for accepting an invitation that you never had to accept. You know what this reminds me of? Years ago, if someone made a collect call, the operator would ask, "Will you accept the charges?" You had a choice. And I realized emotional conflict works in the very same way. Every day, someone is trying to place an emotional collect call. The question is, will you accept the charges? And I've decided that there are some charges that I simply refuse to accept anymore. And it's not because I don't love people or because I don't care, but because God has entrusted me with something precious, my peace. And I have finally learned that protecting my peace is one of the ways that I honor Him. So B-side queens, we have earned our peace. We have survived illnesses, heartbreak, disappointments, financial struggles, the loss of people that we loved. We've raised children, we've buried parents, we started over more than once. We have fought enough real battles that we don't need to volunteer to battles that really belong to someone else. The next time someone tries to hand you the conflict that isn't yours, you pause. You take a breath and ask yourself 3 questions. Did I create this? Has God assigned me to this? Can I truly help, or am I simply being recruited? Those 3 questions may save you hours of worry, days of frustration, and a lot of unnecessary emotional exhaustion. So remember this, my beautiful B-side queens. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it's stewardship. Because the more peace that you preserve, the more peace you have to give to people who truly, truly need it. And that is one of the greatest gifts of living on the B-side. So stay on the B-side. That's where the classics live.